I'm joined here at the table by a group of terrific reporters. CNN's Mark Preston, Mario Parker of Bloomberg, Sungmin Kim of the Associated Press, and CNN's former Moscow bureau chief, Jill Dougherty, who is also the author of My Russia, What I Saw Inside the Kremlin. Hello, everybody. Okay, you have so much experience in anything and all Russia and Vladimir Putin. Where do you think things stand right now?
Well, I'm not too sure that my experience really helps here. This is very complicated. And one of the reasons that it's complicated is because of a lack of precision by the statements of the president. I mean, we have to get real. I am noting, he said, I sort of set up a meeting. Now, seriously, and this is not gratuitous, but what does that mean? You know, the imprecision and the lack of details that we're getting make it very hard to even figure out what is going on.
Which is classic Donald Trump. You know, I was talking to somebody this morning, and I think we just kind of glossing over this, that most of the time when we all cover summits or big diplomatic meetings, it's pre-cooked. Right. The lower level staffers go in and they say this is what's going to happen, and then the primary figures come in and they just kind of sign it and shake hands. This is like actual real diplomacy happening at the highest levels, real time, which is why there are so many known unknowns.
Yes, and I mean, big picture, I think what they did is they are now concentrating, they meaning the allies and the president, and Zelensky, are concentrating on security guarantees. But that big issue that we were talking about how many days ago? 2 days ago, which is the territorial issues, has really been put aside for Zelensky and Putin to decide. That's how it looks right now. And if Putin is not, although of course we don't know whether he is going to or not, but if he's not going to participate, then that leaves a whole big chunk, which is crucial on the side to be decided. Who knows how long will that take?
Right. Well, and I think that with all of these uncertainties and the impreciseness that we're hearing out of the president, there are very real consequences that could accompany that imprecise language, if you will. I'm talking about, Kristen alluded to it in her hit, but over the weekend, obviously the president sort of appeared to endorse what President Putin has wanted in terms of, you know, skipping the ceasefire and going straight to a peace accord. And now, after he left the meeting with European leaders yesterday, he said all of us would obviously prefer the immediate ceasefire while a broader peace accord is reached. And why that matters is if there is no ceasefire while a peace deal is being discussed, that gives more time for Putin to seize more of that territory while these discussions are being held. So there is a lot of, like we're discussing, a lot of unknowns here and a lot of implications and consequences that go with these unknowns.
And I want to go back to a point that you were making, Jill, which is how imprecise the president is being. It's classic Donald Trump. I mean, how many times, no matter what the issue is, are we waiting 2 weeks for a potential plan on anything? I mean, that's the way it is, and he's a talker, and this is the way he has succeeded in life, and just kind of using words without really knowing if there's going to be anything behind it, and it's worked for him. In this, it is so important to have precision, and yet he continues to, when he talks about this, and I want to go back to a little bit more what he said in his interview with Fox this morning, say things about this conflict that don't exactly comport with the historic record of what happened. Just listen to a couple of examples.
Well, the war really started over NATO and Crimea, and they wanted Crimea back. That was given, not a shot fired by President Obama in perhaps the worst real estate deal I've ever seen. It's not a war that should have been started. You don't do that. You don't take on a nation that's 10 times your size.
I just want to be clear. Ukraine did not take on Russia. Russia invaded a sovereign democracy, and Ukraine is trying to defend itself and has been pushing back in this war for over 3 years.
So let me say this, though. I totally agree with what everyone's saying, that his imprecision, his lack of details, the real world, that he doesn't live in necessarily, That's all important, tantamount. However, back here in the U.S., his lack of details and his imprecision is what endears him to the American people. Now, people will say, why do you say that? Because he's able to shift to follow what their public opinion is. And right now, I have to tell you, I understand the geopolitical consequences of what's happening over there. But I got to tell you what, I'm paid to do that. Most people in America are not paid to do that. And they're worrying about whether or not they're going to pay their mortgage, whether they can send their kid to school, whether or not they can pay more for groceries. And I do think that us in Washington have kind of lost touch with what everyone else is feeling out there. So when Trump says, "Oh, let's give him back Crimea," because the reality is Trump is telling Russia, "Take back Crimea. That's fine as long as it gets us to no war." People out in Middle America say, "Oh, there'll be no war. Oh, there'll be no troops on the ground." That's what they want to hear.
Right. No, I totally hear you on that. But it is also
it's no
true.
excuse.
It is
I'm
also
not saying
true
it's
that-
an excuse. I'm just trying to paint the
I
picture.
agree, but the American taxpayer will pay the price for this imprecision. If that war doesn't end, if Europe continues to fester with a war, we will pay the price. And precision is
agree.
important.
I agree with you.
I
But,
know.
but that's the long-term thinking. In the short term, am I going to pay my mortgage? Am I sending my kid to school? I mean, I know, and it's incredibly frustrating. It doesn't help when Donald Trump is being so imprecise.
There is, just kind of going back to one of the ideas that I was talking about with Kristen Holmes at the White House, there is a very keen interest among the base, the MAGA base, in what the president says and does ultimately with regard to U.S. troops, because he promised to get out of wars, which I think everybody believes he really wants to do. But then going one layer deeper, the question of, we talked about this yesterday, it came up in the European leaders meeting about an Article 5-like security guarantee. You know who didn't love that? His friend Steve Bannon. Let's listen.
I'm just lost how the United States offering an Article 5 commitment for a security guarantee to Ukraine is a win for the United States.
Mario?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at this as a summer of fissures within the MAGA base, right, the first step was when Donald Trump used military action against Iran to blow up the nuclear sites. That preceded the Jeffrey Epstein row as well, but that was the first split. And now you're saying that again. You're saying Stephen Bannon kind of sounded the alarm as he did before in that way as well. And you're saying Trump this morning tried to clean that up, obviously, with saying that he could give assurances that there will be no boots on the ground. Yesterday in the meeting, he was saying that there is no red line. I was struck this morning just by how much he was towing some of Putin's rhetoric about how this war had began. So it's been vacillating back and forth. But make no mistake about it. I mean, going into the midterms, the domestic politics of it all, going into the midterms, Trump made a promise to end this war. And among Trump's agenda in the unfinished business from his first term is a Nobel Peace Prize. And that's something that Putin is also playing into, because they're thinking that, oh, he's going to go ahead and make a quick deal in order to secure a victory.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump fully believes that, and he said it, he was caught on a hot mic saying it in private, just like he's said publicly, that Vladimir Putin wants to help Donald Trump be the guy to get this deal done. And that is going to be a very open question whether we see that come to fruition.